Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. So in this video today, we'll be solving some sample scenario-based question and answers for your PMP certification exam in 2023. So we'll be covering a wide range of topics from the PMP exam syllabus, starting from Waterfall project management and moving on to hybrid and agile project management. So if you are preparing for the PMP certification exam in 2023, this video will help you understand the type of questions that you might expect in the exam. Now, while solving the questions in this video, I will time and again refer to this video on my YouTube channel where I have discussed the exact framework which you need to use while solving scenario-based question and answers in the PMP exam. So make sure you watch that video as well during the initial stages of your exam preparation. Also, I would like you to track your performance while you solve the questions with me today in this video, okay? So as part of today's exercise, the target would be to get all the 5 out of 5 questions correct, okay? However, if you are able to get at least 4 out of the 5 questions correct, you may consider yourself fairly well prepared for the PMP exam. Now, anything less than that, you might need a bit more preparation, okay? So let's start with question number 1.
Right, so question number 1, guys. Okay, pause the video, read the question properly, and try to answer it before we solve it together. Okay, so let's start. You have recently been appointed as a project manager of a highly matured and efficient agile team. Okay, during a sprint review, you experience some discontent within your team members regarding the high lead time to obtain a necessary government permit. Now, since this is a government permit, this is a requirement that you might not be able to bypass or omit, okay, as a part of the overall project, because this is a controls and a governance issue. The team is of the opinion that this will delay the sprint and hence could be avoided. Okay, so that's a conflict in terms of the way your team is interpreting the requirement of this government permit. However, the product owner is of the opinion that the permit is necessary to roll out the project in a compliant way, as I was discussing, right? So there is obviously a conflict in terms of the way you or your product owner interprets the importance of this government permit vis-a-vis how your team is interpreting the importance of this government permit. How could you have prevented this conflict as a project manager? Okay, now a very important thing to consider here is, guys, the way this question is structured, because note that it is not asking you that what you need to do now as a project manager because the conflict has already happened, okay, but it is asking you that how you could have prevented this situation as a project manager. Okay, so it's something of a systemic fix which probably was addressed previously, could have prevented this situation to happen in the first place. Okay, so note that the question is asking you as a project manager to identify that systemic fix rather than trying to do a damage control now. Okay, so now let's look at the options one by one. Option A: ensure that the stakeholders from all departments attend the sprint review meeting. Now, this is a very broad option, guys, and I hope none of you have selected this, okay? Because primarily ensuring that all the stakeholders from all departments attending a sprint review meeting is not something which is recommended, because then you might need to address a big team of 15, 20, 30 people sitting in a meeting of a sprint review where most of the members in the meeting doesn't have anything substantial to contribute. Okay, because a sprint review meeting is only focused to the core project management group or your core agile group, right? So that way option A is definitely incorrect. Let's look at option B. Ensure that the product owner and the team members shares issues and concerns while working collaboratively. Okay, now that looks like a systemic fix that if from day one you would have ensured that the product owner and the team members, they are sharing and working collaboratively to understand the requirements and the needs of the project, then this difference of opinion with respect to the government permit could have been avoided now. Okay, so let's hold this option for now. Mark that we are not marking option B as correct at the moment because we still have option C and option D to evaluate and accept or reject on solid grounds. Okay, because if you have seen this video already, you know that how important this is as per the positive bias principle that we have discussed in the video. Now let's look at option C. Ask the product owner to provide rationale of the permitting process to the team in the sprint review meeting. Now, this is a very interesting option, guys. Look what this option is trying to hint at. It is trying to say that, okay, this issue has already happened, and now in the sprint review meeting, the product owner is trying to provide a rationale of the entire permitting process to the team members. Okay. Now, what is this? This is a reactive way of solving this issue. Okay. But if you look at the question stem, what it's asking, it is asking that how you could have prevented this conflict as a project manager. Notice that it is not asking that what is your next step as a project manager now in this situation, or what you need to do now in this situation as a project manager. Okay. The question is asking you to think about something which, if was done previously, would have totally avoided this situation from happening. Okay. So that is the reason why option C is also incorrect, guys. Okay. Because it is hinting at a solution which is reactive and not proactive in nature. Let's look at option D. Require the team to update the impediment board and tackle this issue as a story point. Again, this is something which has been coined incorrectly, because in terms of solving an issue, you use root cause analysis techniques or problem solving techniques, right? Story points are something which you use when you are gathering requirements as a part of your agile project. Okay. So theoretically also this option is incorrect, and strategically also, since you are updating the impediment board now because the issue has already happened, this is a bit of a reactive approach, and that is the primary reason why option D is incorrect, guys. Okay. Please note that how we have looked at each and every option and analyzed them critically before we accepted or rejected an option. Okay. So this particular skill of option analysis would be very, very, very important for your PMP exam. Okay. So the correct answer to this question is option B, which is to ensure that the product owner and the team member shares issues and concerns while working collaboratively from day one of the project. And that is a systemic fix which you could have done as a project manager to avoid this situation from happening now.
If you are liking this video, guys, please press the like button. Also, if you are preparing for the PMP exam in 2023, make sure you check out my mock exam simulator and my 35 PDU course on Udemy. Both the courses are very high rated among the students, and I'll provide the links in the description section of this video. Now let's move on to question number 2.
Okay, so question number 2, guys. The drill remains the same. Please read the question and try to answer it before we solve it together. Okay, right. So let's start solving the question. In a hostel block refurbishment project, which you are leading as a project manager, you have completed the following steps. Finish the construction works, confirm with the client that the hostel block is ready to reoccupy, confirm that the functionality of the mechanical and the electrical installations are verified by quality assurance, and you have informed the client as well. What is the next step you should ideally be taking as a project manager in this scenario? Okay, and it has given you 4 options: A, B, C, and D. Right. Now, if you look at the question stem, guys, it ideally hints that this project is in the closeout phase, right? Because since you have finished the construction works, you have confirmed the client that the hostel block is ready to reoccupy, you have done all the quality assurance checks, etc., etc. So this is definitely a scenario which is in the closeout stage of the project. Okay. So with that in mind, let's start evaluating the options one by one. Option A: review, verify, and complete the acceptance document with quality assurance. Okay. Now, this looks like a bit of a redundant activity to me, and that's primarily because all the mechanical and electrical installations, as is being provided in this scenario, are being verified by quality assurance. Okay. Now, in the closeout stage, now completion of the acceptance documents should have been occurring as part of this step already. Okay. So it is unlikely that the quality assurance process is complete without these acceptance documents being signed by yourself or being signed by the client. Okay. Because if you note here in this question stem, it has been mentioned that it is confirmed that the functionality of the mechanical and the electrical installations are verified already. Okay. So this looks like a redundant option, and that is why I will eliminate it straight away. Option B: ensure that all the supplier invoices are paid for. Okay, now you might argue that before the project ends, you need to clear all the supplier invoices so the books of accounts closes out by the end of the project. Okay, so let's park this option for now. Option C, update the risk register and issue log. Okay, that's a very generic option, guys, because updating of the risk register and issue log starts to happen from the execution stage of the project and continues throughout the monitoring and controlling stage and into the closeout stage as well. Okay, so this is not something specific that needs to happen in the closeout stage, and for that reason this option is quite broad and doesn't gel too well with the scenario that has been provided as part of the project closeout scenario, and that is why I will eliminate option C. Option D, add the lessons learned to the organizational process assets, which are the OPAs. Okay, now this is also a valid option, guys, because before you close out a project, if you go and study the closing phase of PMBOK, you will see that one of the critical activities that is performed during a closeout process is to update the lessons learned register from the project and file it as part of your organizational process assets. Okay, now let's park this option as well, option D. Okay, now after the first iteration we are left with option B and option D. Okay, now if we go back to option B and try to analyze it critically again, ensuring that all supplier invoices are paid for as part of the closeout stage of the project doesn't seem quite likely. Okay, and I'll tell you why. I would like you to open the 49 process chart of the PMBOK and check that whether there are any procurement activities mentioned as part of the closeout stage of any project. Okay, no, right? So there are no activities from procurement management that are performed as part of the closeout stage of the project as per PMBOK guidelines. Okay, so that is one of the primary reason why this option does not gel quite well with the scenario that has been provided as part of the question stem. Okay, and the second thing which you need to know practically as well, guys, that when you are doing a project, ensuring that all the supplier invoices are paid as part of the project might be something which you need to take help from accounts or finance to get that sorted, but that is not a very core project activity, because sometimes it happens that some of the invoices may have some documentation issues, some of the invoices might have some fixed terms and conditions through which the payment will happen, etc., and that is generally managed by finance, which is a part of your organizational corporate finance. Okay, so that is not a core project activity. So this is the reason why option B is not a core closeout activity, and hence in the 49 process chart you will not see any activity from procurement management happening in the closeout stage of the project, because most of these checks and reconciliations happen during the monitoring and controlling phase as part of your control procurement activities. Okay, so that is the reason why option B is also incorrect, and the correct answer to this question is option D, which is to add the lessons learned of the project to your organizational process assets.
Now I hope you are finding this video useful, right? If you do, please subscribe to my channel PMP with Ray. It will really motivate me to create more such content for you to help you prepare for your PMP exam. And now let's move on to question number 3.
Question number 3, guys. Pause the video, read the question, and try to solve it before we solve this together. Right, so let's start solving the question. The server upgrade project by CloudSpace has 3 deliverables and they follow the mentioned execution approaches as below. Okay, so this question is basically from the topic of selection of the right project management approach from agile, hybrid, or predictive. Okay, so let's go back to the question. So phase 2 has strict delivery milestones with clear scope and quality metrics. So it has 3 deliverables, right? So let's say this is the second deliverable which is happening as part of phase 2, and phase 2 has strict delivery milestones with clear scope and quality metrics. Now let's have a look on what's happening with phase 1 and phase 3. So for phase 1 and phase 3, these are exploratory in nature with evolving requirements. Okay, what is the most suitable life cycle for this project? And it has given you 4 options: A, B, C, and D. Now, to solve this question correctly, you need to have a very good understanding of the project methodologies. What are the criteria and the characteristics of a predictive or a waterfall project? In which situations you apply a hybrid project? What are the main conditions where a agile project is most suitable, etc., etc. So if you have that basic knowledge, you should be able to answer this question very, very easily and very quickly as well. I have covered such kind of critical concepts and topics as a part of my 35 PDU course on Udemy, right? So those of you who are students of that course, you should find this question quite easy to solve. Okay, so let's look at the options one by one. Option A, fully agile. Now I will not even read the next part of the option, guys, okay, because primarily it is saying that phase 2 has strict delivery milestones with clear scope and quality metrics, and this is one of the primary reasons why we can safely interpret that this phase 2 of the project needs to follow a predictive or waterfall approach. So definitely the project cannot be fully agile. Okay. Next, option B, hybrid. Okay, so that's a good option because if this part of the project is predictive, and since phase 1 and phase 3 are exploratory with evolving requirements, we can safely assume that this would somewhat follow our agile methodology. Then definitely this project is a hybrid project. Okay, now let's read the second part of option B. With phase 2 as predictive and phase 1 and phase 3 embedded as agile. Okay, now this looks like a very good option because it is essentially saying what we have already discussed, right? That since phase 2 has strict delivery milestones with clear scope, you do phase 2 as a predictive project and phase 1 and phase 3 happens as a agile project. Let's look at option C. Again, it's mentioning that it's a hybrid project with phase 2 as a single user story based sprint cycle. Okay, now it's getting confusing here. And phase 1 and phase 3 as iterative, right? Now, if you try to analyze this option in two parts, there is basically nothing wrong with this part of the option where it's saying that you do phase 1 and phase 3 as iterative, which makes sense because they are exploratory in nature with evolving requirements. However, if we come to the first part of this option, it is mentioning that phase 2 needs to be executed as a single user story based sprint cycle. Okay, now that makes this option quite incorrect because as you see here, since phase 2 has strict delivery milestones with clear scope and quality metrics, there is no point having a sprint or taking an agile approach for phase 2 of the project, right? So that is the reason why option C is incorrect because it is not a recommended approach to deliver a phase which has strict delivery milestones and clear scope and quality metrics as part of a agile sprint. Okay, so that is why option C is incorrect. Option D, now I will not even read the second part of this option because if it is fully predictive, whatever reasoning you provide, that is not correct because this project cannot be fully predictive because phase 1 and phase 3 are exploratory in nature and you have to have a iterative or a agile based approach for phase 1 and phase 3. So that is the reason why option D is also incorrect because it's saying that the project could be done as a fully predictive project with defined scope statement and a weekly milestone schedule. Okay, now you cannot have a weekly milestone schedule definitely for a scope which is exploratory in nature and which has evolving requirements. Okay, so that is the primary reason why option D is also incorrect. So the correct answer to this question is option B, where you do phase 2 as a waterfall or a predictive scope and phase 1 and phase 3 is embedded over the entire life cycle of the project to be executed in an agile approach.
With that, let's now move on to question number 4.
Okay, so question number 4, guys. The drill remains the same. Read the question and try to answer it before we solve it together. Okay, so let's start solving the question. Remy has recently been inducted as a project manager in an agile project for an organization undergoing agile transition. Okay, so the organization is transitioning from a waterfall or a predictive way to a agile way of working. Remy wants to build an ideal agile team with a good distribution of T-shaped and I-shaped individuals. How could Remy be sure whether the agile team possesses a good representation of T-shaped individuals? Now, to answer this question, it is very important that you understand the basic agile terminologies, right? So, who is a T-shaped individual in an agile project? Who is an I-shaped individual in an agile project, etc., etc. Now, if you don't have that understanding, you will be having a very difficult time while solving such type of questions. Okay, so it's of utmost importance that you understand and read the basic terms and terminologies related to agile projects. Now, as part of this question, let's try to summarize the basic definition of a T-shaped individual and a I-shaped individual in an agile project, right? Now, in context of agile project teams, the terms T-shaped and I-shaped refer to the skills and expertise of individual team members. Okay, these concepts are often used to describe the diverse set of skills and collaborative abilities of team members in an agile project. So, when it comes to a T-shaped individual, these type of people has a broad range of skills and knowledge, which is the horizontal part of the T, and deep expertise in one or more specific areas, which is the vertical part of the T. Okay. This means that they have a primary skill or domain in which they excel, but also they possess a willingness and capability to contribute and collaborate across different areas of expertise. However, an I-shaped individual has deep expertise in one specific area, but they lack the breadth of skills and knowledge in other domains. So when it comes to the contribution of T-shaped individuals in an agile project, these kind of individuals can collaborate more easily across various roles and tasks, promoting a better understanding of the entire project. So you can look at a T-shaped individual as a person who is sort of a delegated project manager or a mini project manager per se. Okay. However, when it comes to the I-shaped individuals, these type of individuals bring deep domain knowledge and specialized skills to the team, which is crucial for tackling complex issues and driving innovation in specific areas. Now, if we talk of an example, let's say you are a project manager and you are designing an equipment which will be packing sachets of shampoo. Okay. Now, in this scenario, the T-shaped individual would be the machine design engineer who will not only design the machine but also will understand the interfaces in which the machine will interact with the packaging material, the machine will interact with the electronics and communication, the machine will interact with the raw materials, which is the shampoo which you are packing, etc., etc. Okay. Now, in this same project, who would be some I-shaped individuals? They would be, let's say, the packaging engineer who has a very, very deep knowledge about the type of packaging that will be most suitable for the machine. Another example of an I-shaped individual would be the electronics and communication engineer who will design the entire software programming of the machine, right? Now, if you see, these kind of I-shaped individuals work in silos, right? So let's say the packaging engineer doesn't know how electronics and communications happens in the machine. Similarly, the electronics and communication engineer doesn't really know the head or tail of the packaging process. But however, when you look at the T-shaped individual who is the machine design engineer, this person does not only have a good understanding of the overall machine design, but also understands the way the machine will interact with raw material, the packaging material, the electronics and communications programming, etc., etc. Okay. Now, in a project, both of these entities of T-shaped individual and I-shaped individual are very, very important, and you need to have a good mix of both of these individuals in a team. Okay. So now with that, since we have understood the basic of T-shaped and I-shaped individuals, let's go back to the question. And now I am sure that it will become very easy for us to answer this question. Okay. Now, how could Remy be sure whether the agile team possesses a good representation of T-shaped individuals? Okay, mark that the question is asking for T-shaped individuals, not I-shaped, right? Option A, reduction in reassignment of task. Okay, now this is a good option because if you have more T-shaped individuals, since they're able to execute the basics of any task in a project, you will have minimum reassignment happening as part of your project. Okay, so let's hold this option for now. Option B, increase in number of story points. That's a very broad option, guys, and that is quite irrelevant, so that we'll eliminate, because increasing in number of story points happen when you do not have a basic understanding of the scope of the project. Okay, or you want to break down a complex story point into multiple simple story points. Okay, but it is irrelevant with respect to the project scenario. Option C, decrease in identified blockers. Again, that's a irrelevant option, guys. Decrease in identified blockers can happen as part of the sprint review meeting, as part of retrospective, etc., etc. But that doesn't really concern the scenario which we have in this question. Option D, increasing participation of subject matter experts. Okay, now this is very interesting. You tell me that when you need to depend as a project manager on subject matter experts a lot, okay, and that is when you have a lot of eye-shaped individuals, and you as a project manager need to go to solve one issue with one SME, another issue with another SME, another issue with another SME. So this is sort of a SME driven culture, which is a subject matter expert driven culture, where you are working with a lot of eye-shaped individuals who might be excellent in their domain, but they really do not have the understanding of how different domains interact with each other. So this generally happens when you have a lot of I-shaped individuals in the team and do not have any T-shaped individuals who will be responsible to manage the interactions between different domains. So that is why option D is also incorrect. And the correct answer to this question is option A, which is a reduction in reassignment of the task. And as I mentioned, this will happen when you will have a good representation of T-shaped individuals in your project team, because you will less likely start depending on the subject matter experts for basic levels of domain interactions. Okay, now, you might be requiring the help of the subject matter experts when it's a very specific issue or a problem that you are trying to solve. But for overall day-to-day working, you will start depending less on subject matter experts who are I-shaped individuals if you have a good representation of T-shaped individuals in your project team. So that is why the correct answer is option A.
I hope you are tracking your performance, guys, right? Remember, the target is to get all the 5 out of 5 questions correct, but as a minimum, you should try to get at least 4 out of the 5 questions correct, okay? So here comes the final one.
Okay, so question number 5, guys. Please read the question and try to answer it before we solve it together. Right. A highly classified project has key stakeholders located across 5 different countries such as India, China, UK, UAE, and Mexico. One of the key sponsors of the project from Mexico requests some key information to be shared urgently to help her mobilize project funding. Okay. What steps should you take as a project manager? And it has given you 4 options. Now, this shouldn't be too difficult, guys, for you, right? Let's look at the options one by one. Option A, share the information at the earliest, since this is a request from one of the project sponsors. Incorrect. And that's primarily because since this is a highly classified project and you have 5 different countries representing the project, it is quite natural that you will have different sponsors across different countries mobilizing the funding of that country for the project. Okay, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there will be free exchange of information across all the sponsors unless it has been documented somewhere in the project, right? So that's why option A is definitely incorrect. Option B, consult the communication management plan to verify the request. Now we are talking, right? So this is where in the communication management plan, you will have the details of what kind of information and to what level could be shared across the sponsors or the stakeholders in the project. And you can use this to verify the request of the sponsor from Mexico who is asking you to share some details of the project. So this looks like a good option, but let's hold it for now. Option C, consult the stakeholder engagement plan to verify the request. Okay. Now, verification of the request is the right part of this option, but the incorrect part of this option is the stakeholder engagement plan. Because in the stakeholder engagement plan, you will not be able to find such kind of information sharing guidelines. Okay. Because the stakeholder engagement plan provides you the plan of how you can keep the stakeholders engaged throughout the project, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it is only your project sponsors. It can mean the other parties who are involved in the project as well, directly or indirectly. So that way this option is incorrect because it is referring to an incorrect artifact to review this information. So option C is off the table definitely. Option D, report this project governance as a potential breach of confidentiality. Now, this option is taking it a bit too far, right? As a project sponsor from Mexico, the person definitely has the right to ask some information from you as a project manager, okay? But it is your responsibility to review the relevant documents and artifacts and verify the request before you can share it with that person, okay? So this is no way a breach of confidentiality until and unless that person is forcing you to share some document which that person is not allowed to view, and that is documented as part of the communications management plan or as part of the project governance plan in the project in question, okay? So I hope none of you have selected option D, right? So the correct answer to this question is option B, which is to consult the communications management plan first and then verify the request. And if it is okay to share the required information, it can be shared with the project sponsor from Mexico to help her mobilize the required project funding.
So that's the end of the quiz, guys. Let me know in the comment section below how much you scored, okay? I'd be very interested to know that. However, even if you have scored less, there is no reason to worry, okay? You just need a bit more practice. Keep an eye on this channel because I'll be uploading more such practice Q&A videos for your PMP exam in future. Meanwhile, make sure you do check out my Udemy courses, okay? And I will see you in the next video.